Welcome to our threat insights. I think I need to be careful about what I call our group names because currently threat management is what I have on everything. It will be updated to threat insights relatively soon. I think I'll wait for the handbook change to be made this time before I make that update. Our weekly group discussion. In the past, this has been primarily focused on planning breakdown, but in order to consolidate the Monday morning demo meeting and any other synchronous group-wide conversations we want to have in the area of threat management, we've tried to move it all into this meeting. So the agenda has been updated to reflect that. I'm going to jump right in. So there's looking at previous discussions, there has been some ongoing discussions over the course of the last week that I wanted to mention with Sam Beckham, Matt Wilson, Aviel from the secure team, and myself around the front end integration of the first class vulnerabilities into the security dashboard. Since Aviel is not here, I don't think I'm going to spend too much time getting into those. Thank you for joining, Sam. Just the big highlights there is that Aviel is still contributing to back-end work in the security dashboards, which is great. It has brought up the question of whether we're moving a lot of our changes into GraphQL, and we're still discussing that. I think the direction that we're hoping to take is to introduce GraphQL in the security dashboards, but leave the standalone vulnerability page as it is today. This will help because we don't have a lot of GraphQL experience on the front-end defend team, and that work is already done. We don't want to delay this MVC some more, but in general, that's the direction that all of GitLab's front-end is going. So we'll want to create an issue to retrofit that standalone page to use that technology. There's some outstanding questions on whether any of the remaining work for that standalone vulnerability page needs to be done in GraphQL or not. I think the hope is that we don't, but since Aviel is not here, we're not going to get into that too much. I'm going to move on to the demo topic unless anyone has any questions about that. I have linked to the issue here in the agenda. Okay. So Sam has shared with us a demo of this work. So moving the security dashboard into GraphQL. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, and I'm assuming most people haven't, because Sam, I think you just added this pretty recently, if I'm correct.
Yeah, I added this maybe 15 minutes ago. So yeah, it's pretty new, and this isn't a demo of something that we have or even something that's in review. It's just a proof of concept of here's how it works, so that we can do it, and it's relatively easy to bring in. So it's just a proof of concept, this one.
So for the sake of time, I'm not going to share this on the call today. I'm encouraging people to watch it asynchronously, provide any feedback, whether it's directly to Sam or here in the document. I don't know if there's an issue or an MR. Sam, if you have an MR that you want to link to here for any questions, I think that would probably be the best place for that.
There's not one, but
okay.
I can certainly make one in the morning.
Sure.
Because yeah, you're right. It's probably best we don't discuss this on YouTube comments.
But in general, I love this approach. I think that if we can have demos recorded and shared asynchronously before the call, we can use a few minutes of this meeting for any highlights or questions, any discussion that comes out of the demo. I think it's a better use of our time than watching them together on a call. So that brings us down to the planning breakdown. I am going to share my screen, which I didn't realize I wasn't doing that before, sorry. Actually, Matt, do you want to drive at all, or do you want me to just go ahead and do it and you can talk?
Yeah, you can go ahead and do it. I'll just talk.
All right, sounds good.
See how this works out.
Like a ventriloquist, it's like I have my hands behind. Yeah. Let's start from the top of the list.
Okay, cool. So this one came in. I'm trying to read through this one real quick. Yeah, so I think on this one, it is going to help clarify. Right now, everything is assumed in the master branch or the default branch. And so it looks like if files are removed, it's going the wrong line. I was trying to scan through the comments on this one. It actually, Ross, if you remember this one, it looks like you and Philippe were going back and forth a few weeks ago on this.
I don't know about going back and forth, but Philippe provided some great insights, and I agreed with him. But I think my last comment on here, if you want to scroll to that, is kind of a good place to go through, go from. Yeah, that one. Yeah, and have like three things we can do, and the two are easier. And what Philippe was pointing out is that if you dismiss it, or if you create an issue when it's in a feature branch, we don't have the correct permalink for it. But if you create an issue after it's on the group or project level security dashboard, we can give a permalink. So and Dennis from the security team, like the way they use it, they do all that from the group security dashboard. So they like their workflow, they absolutely could have a permalink every time, where it doesn't work like that necessarily for everyone. But right now we're not providing a permalink for anyone when we could be providing it sometimes. And I guess my biggest question would be to Andy, as far as the user experience, like, is that going to be good or bad, or what are your thoughts as far as, like, at some point, sometimes we'll say, hey, this is a permanent link to this file, it's going to be here forever. And then, but if they create the issue from
we need to sum up the problem again. Do we need to sum up the problem again if it's not clear for everyone?
I think someone else.
Hey, Philippe, why don't you go ahead and summarize your understanding of this issue for everybody, just to make sure we're all on the same page.
All right. So basically, when you have a finding in the merge request, the problem is the location of the finding is based on the current branch and the current commits. But these commits and that branch are going to disappear in the future. So once the branch is getting merged into master, if you squash the commits, you're going to create a new commit, and the previous location is going to be a 404. It doesn't exist anymore. So in a perfect ideal world, we would have this location that would be dynamic, so that in the context of the merge request, we would link to the current commit where we found actually the finding. And once the merge request has been merged into master, we need to update all these findings and all the vulnerabilities location so that they will point to the new location, the new commits into master, so that we have a permalink. And it needs to be a permalink because the code is going to evolve with time. So if we refer to location, it has to be completely static. Does that make sense? And it's not the case today. That's the problem.
And I one further like complication to that is, like, we're not storing that permalink as a database record. We're just injecting it in as text in the description of an issue. So it's not as easy to update as it could be if we wanted to go that route of making it, you know, an attribute or something.
All right, not to confuse planning breakdown with grooming, I think we need to remember what the goal of this meeting is. So I'm going to go back and remind everyone about the questions that we're trying to answer as part of this conversation. I think Philippe just did a great job of explaining to us the requirements. Is there any questions around the intent of the requests? And the second question is understanding the boundaries of the work to be accomplished. Does this take us outside of our standard defend code that we're used to working in? Are we dependent on any other teams?
I think first we need to decide what we want to do with that. Do we want to achieve this perfect / ideal solution that I've described, or We can also get rid of the location at some point and say it's just a complex forest at the moment, and we will deal with that later.
I don't think we can get rid of location at the moment. So yeah, I agree. This has to be addressed.
So the solution impacts the rest of these questions. So we need to at least have on a high level understand our approach and how we want to solve this, or what we want the customer to see in the end, before we can say that we understand the boundaries. So I guess I kind of look at Matt and Andy from a user experience perspective of what would be the most ideal solution. I mean, is it what Thomas just described, or the permalink? Is that what we should be striving for as part of solving this?
It should be a link that opens the file in terms of my my need. But the file should be in master so that you can at least see it and maybe even edit it if you want. But it can't be a link to a commit, basically a dead file.
Well, the problem is if you link to the file directly in master and that file disappears for some reason, you're getting back to square one, all four. That's why you need a permalink. You need the exact state of the file at that exact moment where we found the vulnerability. So apart from being able to update all the vulnerabilities when we merge something, I don't see how we can solve that, honestly. And I understand that's a lot of work. Probably. No idea.
So for the sake of time,
yes,
we need to move forward. So it doesn't sound like the solution validation is complete. It sounds like we need to take this offline, have somebody propose a solution that we bring back to this group and move forward with. Do we think that, that's already been done? I know Ross has already added some suggestions here in the comments.
Do I hear discovery? Ross, this is where you step in and say it's straightforward. Tomorrow it's done.
No, I'm not putting my foot in my mouth. And also, like, what I'm proposing, especially in 1 and 2, is very much not as robust of a solution as you're proposing, where we maintain the permalink appropriately throughout the lifespan.
But that seems to be matching the desire that Andy has from a customer experience perspective. He nods his head.
That's correct, yeah. Because I mean, even in the MR, the experience isn't great because the user is dealing with the feature branch, but when they click on the location, they get taken to like a dead file. It tells them where and what, but it can't do anything from it, especially from the MR. It doesn't make sense. They should be able to at least make a change from there.
All right, so I'm kind of at a loss right now. I know that, Ross, we're not supposed to be doling out more work to you at this point. I don't see Jonathan or Mihao here. I think that this is going to require some more conversation, but I don't want to spend the whole half hour of this call discussing it. So
absolutely, that's fair.
I'm going to take a note that I don't know the right way to proceed here. I think we need to find a right asynchronous way forward and not necessarily be dependent on another call. But I'm not sure what that is right now. So I'm open to suggestions. Otherwise, we're gonna hop down to the next ticket or the next issue and either put this back on the agenda for next week, or I am forced to set up another synchronous call specifically on this issue.
I think that we can just assign a DRI that someone within the team. So I know they aren't here, but if we can give that to Jonathan and we need an answer before the end of the week on this or before next week, and he's, as the DRI, you're willing to pull in anyone you need to. So just ping people in the issue And if we still don't have an answer in a week, then we can restart the process.
All right, so I am going to go ahead and assign it to Jonathan because that's the name that you said. I'm just going to take a note and do this after the call. One sec. All right. Moving forward. So that was the first one. Hi, Aviel. Thank you for joining us. We've kind of moved on from the GraphQL security dashboard integration discussion to get through some of our planning breakdown. So I was going to set up some time with you and Sam and maybe another front-end developer for tomorrow, and we can sync up on Slack after this, if that's okay. Thanks for joining, though.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Okay, so next issue on the list for planning breakdown, dismiss findings should turn into dismiss vulnerabilities. This was created by Mihao, by Ross a couple weeks ago, and it is assigned to Mihao already. So I'm not sure if he's already been grooming this. Let's see. And Wayne is unfortunately not here, and neither is Miha. It sounds like they've had a discussion about this one. It seemed like a pretty straightforward issue to me. So let's just make sure from everyone else in the group's perspective, I hope you've had a chance to review this in advance and you understand the intent of this request. The boundaries seem fairly contained. And what was our third question? Is the research and validation, solution validation complete? So it sounds like there's some discussion that both Wayne or Miha wanted to have on this, but since they're not here, does anyone have any questions or anything that we want to have on the recording for when they watch this? Additional topics that came up while you were reviewing this in advance prior to this meeting and thinking about it? Ross.
Yeah, so in the issue I've linked, or it's linked to a related merge request. So one of the issues that I'm working on currently is migrating so that we have vulnerabilities records for all of our projects, and as part of that, we are updating if a vulnerability occurrence was dismissed. And now it's being turned, and then it has since been turned into a vulnerability, and that vulnerability is in the detected state instead of dismissed. We're going to update it to dismissed. So you didn't dismiss 100 vulnerability findings before, and now they're not dismissed. You don't have to redo that work. My question is about timing, because like if I get that done this release and that migration goes out and everything's up to date, but then we don't have this code in there yet, and more vulnerabilities are created, have been dismissed and then are created, they will be in the detected state as well and will need to be updated again. So to make sure that everything is moved to dismissed appropriately and we don't miss anything, we'll need to run that part of the migration. We would need to rerun that part of the migration.
So you just want to line up the timing around that, because it sounds like we just want the shortest possible delta between when this code goes live and the last run of that migration, right?
Yes, I mean that would be ideal, and I guess it also kind of, to me, it's relevant on when we are going to turn the feature flag off or on, turn the feature on. First class vulnerabilities turned on for everybody.
Right, so we do have a separate issue for removing the feature flag and turning on first class vulnerabilities. It sounds like you're identifying some sequencing or time considerations or blockers between those and this.
So we don't need to run this migration that I'm working on until we're ready to remove the feature flag for everybody. So the question is, would it make sense to wait on my migration until we have this in place? Or should we just do the dismissal migration part twice? That's my question.
So what's the benefit of running it earlier rather than waiting until the point where we're removing the feature flag to run it? I mean, with the exception of maybe testing.
Maybe. The other would be that like it's targeted for the 12.9 milestone. That's the other benefit.
Mm.
That,
Well,
that's the other thing. It's arbitrary to me, but
I think having the script ready to run within the 12.9 milestone is a reasonable goal, but actually running it in production needs to be coordinated with the feature flag removal, correct? I mean, you could, like you said, you could run it in 12.9, but it doesn't matter. You're just gonna have to do it again.
Well, yeah, I mean, I suppose if we got this work that we're looking at done before we remove the feature flag, I mean, it's fine to run the migration before the feature flag is removed. But if we're not removing the feature flag in 12.9, then it makes sense to wait, I think, I guess is.
I can say with confidence that we're not removing the feature flag in 12.9. There's enough integration in the security dashboard still to be done. And I'm not, I'm not going to speak for all the rest of the work that's still ongoing that we're looking at 12.10.
Okay, so basically, I should make it should be safe to have my migration work that I'm working on dependent on this issue. Okay, that's answers my question. Thank you.
I don't want to be the only person answering that question. Does anyone disagree with that? Does anyone else have input? I guess I will be the final word then. All right, so we might revisit that last issue based on any questions that Wayne or Miha had, but let's keep going. We've got one more issue and then a couple of defects. And for the sake of time, we've got 7 more minutes. Hey, Matt, how would you feel about jumping down to that high severity issue just to make sure we get it covered today because it is a P1S one?
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right, so Philippe just opened this today and we want to make sure we address it with the severity and priority that it indicates. So Philippe, since you're on the call and you created it, do you want to give us the summary?
Yeah, so I created that because from the dashboard, when you want to create an issue from a finding, it's not working. It basically does nothing and report an error to a user. And if you investigate the backend response, you have not response, sorry, I need to change that. Project fingerprint can be blank, and it's not the case for all the findings, actually. It seems to be only for a few container scanning, DAST and dependency scanning, but SAST is apparently working, so I suspect something with the common format that would be updated somewhere, but not in all the places like in the parser or something like that. The problem is it prevents the users from creating issues from the findings. So that's a regression and that's a priority.
So this is live affecting customers in production today, totally independent of standalone vulnerabilities. Just to make that clear.
Can you specify what vulnerability causes this on that link?
Let me find it for you.
In the
The
link
first one,
issue,
actually,
the customer had it. I don't know if we can get to that project though.
the first one, so I will add that to the chat here, open this dashboard and go to the third one. It's actually the first one in the list where you have a create issue link. You need to
That's the prototype pollution attack and extend. I just want to attach prototype pollution attack and extend.
Yes, this one.
Okay.
Maybe I can share my screen.
Is this because
Thanks, Philippe.
the issues aren't enabled for JS Yarn project? Because I remember an edge case where we had to, if the issues aren't enabled for a project and the user wants to create issues, we don't have anywhere to create an issue.
That's probably it.
So we should
So it's this one.
probably be hiding that action. Yeah, if you go to that project, there's no issues.
That seems like it would impact the severity if it's an issue that's configured to not allow, if it's a project configured to not allow issues.
Or it's just the issues aren't enabled in that project, which is.
Very good. See, this one is working in Dust. I just created one. It worked fine. So it's not all the findings. Maybe it's the most recent ones or something like that.
Could be a permission thing too.
All right, so it sounds like this is gonna need some triage. Since this is production and a high priority, I think that it will require, you know, somebody to context shift today or soon, just to ensure that the priority is set correctly, and that if it is and truly a P1 S1, that we're addressing it, you know, as soon as possible. So this is a backend issue. We don't have any backend developers on the call, I believe. I could be totally wrong. So is there any volunteers, first of all, to look into this further? Tried the easy route. Dang it. Okay. So yeah.
I'll at least attach the error message from Sentry so we know what it is, and then we can go.
Thanks, Lucas. Okay, so does anyone have a gut feeling of a sort of a focus on who should this go to a front end or a back end developer? I guess that would help me weed down who can dig into this for us right now.
I guess it depends on it. Should we be showing the button, or should we be creating the issue? Like, is the problem
Right.
that we're showing the button when we shouldn't be, or is the problem that we're not able to create the issue when we should be?
Philippe, as
If it's the
the author
first-
of this issue, could you dig into that detail and find out if it's actually a project level configuration limitation? Like, are these projects actually configured to allow issue creation?
I can do that.
Right, I mean, not necessarily right now, because we're getting to the end of this half hour.
Yeah, of
and
course.
add that information there. And like Sam said, that could help us understand if we need to be recognizing that and hiding the create issue button, or if we have a bigger issue behind the scenes in the creation of an issue that really should function correctly. Okay, so we made it through a lot of issues today. We still have one issue and one defect that I will bump up to next week's discussion. And Philippe can already tell us that it's not that. So it sounds like we need a back-end developer probably to
Sorry.
dig into this. But we're gonna take this offline, and we need to discuss it in the Defend channel. We can, but I don't want to go over. So thank you everybody for your time. I'll share the recording of this invite both in the Slack channel and on the agenda. And I'll talk to some of you all in the immediate next meeting. We should really have these in the same Zoom call, huh? Sorry, this is the first time they've been back to back, guys. I am going to hop over to the other Zoom link. I think they are different, aren't they? Just checking. 889. Yeah, they are different. Sorry. I will fix that for future meetings.
You.
All right.